We can send you some red boards so you can have some red
hey,
in your green.
Please do. All right. And this is Jessica McDonald, CMO. That's all right.
Director of marketing.
Director of marketing. I don't need to make a note. I can remember that.
Okay.
All right. For RCR TV, I'm Sean Kinney, and we're joined by Jessica McDonald, the head of marketing for SparkFun. You guys have had a really busy South by Southwest so far. Can we start by just hearing an overview of SparkFun and what are some of the products that you make and who are they geared toward?
Sure. So SparkFun Electronics is a manufacturer and retailer of embedded electronics for hobbyists. So we make circuit boards, shields, all that kind of stuff for you to put your electronics projects together, right? And we carry products, we carry a large Arduino line, so we make a lot of our own shields and our Arduino-powered devices, such as our Red Board, which is one of our key components, and our SparkFun Inventors Kit. And the SparkFun Inventors Kit is one of our flagship products. It's a all-in-one kit for anyone beginning with electronics. It walks you through 13 different circuits. By the time you're done with it, you have learned the basics for anything that you need to do with your electronics projects.
And before we rolled the camera here, you were showing me the Badger Hack board that y'all put together as a handout for South by. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So the Badger Hack activation was a idea that we wanted to teach people how to solder, but also provide them with a piece of hardware that when they go home, they can continue to play and learn and explore. It was a concept that I came up with in conjunction with the creative technologist on my team, a guy named Nick Poole, and the creative engineer on my team, a guy named Sean. And they actually did the board design and firmware work. But the idea was to give you a small form factor. It's about the size of a USB stick, and it has a USB port, so you can put it into your computer super easily. It's basically a small Arduino hooked to an LCD panel that scrolls different information. And we had a scavenger hunt game where you had to find other cool things at South by Create, and once you found them, you plugged it in and you got points and won prizes. But most of all, when you went home, we provided a lot of content on how to hack that badge and turn it into, make it scroll different things, turn it into an 8-bit game, turn it into some sort of sensor device. You could plug things into it. And that was the idea, is we wanted you to start your experience with SparkFun, learn to solder, but then continue it when you got home and make something awesome.
And so I know a big part of SparkFun's brand identity and even the technology that y'all have developed, it's all open. There's no patents that were involved in that. So tell me about how fostering that sort of open accessibility can push innovation.
Sure. So we are a big believer in open source and open source hardware, and that comes directly from our CEO. And when he founded the company, he thought about this idea of let's patent what we're working on. One, patents are really expensive and they're really time consuming, and two, they don't particularly protect your innovation. You saw it with Apple and Samsung, right? Like, people reverse engineer things all the time. And we firmly believe that being open forces you to be more innovative and to be more creative, because we're copied on average every 12 weeks. So once we release a product, 3 months later, our competitors have copied us and they're moving forward with their version of it. Well, if we know that, then we know in 12 weeks, we've got to come up with a new innovation, and we have to stay hungry and we have to stay creative, because we can't just rest on these things that we've already put out. Otherwise, we won't survive as a business. So it forces you to be truly competitive and not just rest on something that you did and then patented, but continue to always be reaching for the future and striving to be more pushing the envelope in technology.
And we talk about this accessibility of technology. I know one of the panels that you took part in during South by Interactive was about bridging the gender divide that's in the technology sector. So I have a few questions about that, really. What is it's so prevalent. We talked about this going to different trade shows. It's blindingly obvious that there's a huge gender divide. Why is that? And what are some of the things that can be done short-term and long-term that could eventually fix that?
Sure. So I'll try to give you the 30-second answer for why it is, because there's a lot of different factors that actually bring it in. One, we have a society that has designed what I call the one true way of engineering, or the one true way of technology, and that way happens to be the very male dominated way, the male-oriented way, right? And this started when computers became accessible as a personal device. So in the early 80s, when you had the advent of Apple and Microsoft, sort of the rise of what we think of as the beginning of the computer age, those computers were marketed as toys. And they were marketed as toys in the same way that RC cars were marketed, which is to say directly to boys. Boys, on average, receive computers earlier than girls, so they have more experience with them. Moreover, we glorified the male computer nerd culture to such an extent that it became the de facto, right? Gaming and computer technology are two fields in STEM that have the lowest participation in women. And a lot of that has to do with the way that we talk about technology, right? When you ask second graders to draw an image of someone in science or tech, they draw a white man. And so even at second grade, this image of what a scientist or someone who works in technology is ingrained in them. And that stays with girls. They're told over and over and over again, this is not a place for you. This is not where you belong. Girls aren't good at math. Girls aren't good at computers. Girls don't do this. And that makes an impact, so that by the time they get to college, they firmly believe that they will fail if they try this, and they don't. No one wants to fail, right? So they go into other fields. There was a quote from a book called Hackers, Heroes of the Computer Revolution that sort of summed this up. This was a seminal work on the rise of the computer age, and the Stephen Levy, who was the author, interviewed a bunch of programmers about it. And one of the quotes was, "You knew that inefficient and wasteful things like women burn too many cycles, suck up too many resources. How can you stand such an imperfect being?" And that's the environment that women walk into. So how do you tell girls, walk into this place where you're actively hated and judged on every moment on what you're able to do? That's what prevents them from coming into it. Now, what we can do about it, there's a few different things. Companies can make an effort to really reach out to girls. SparkFun is doing it, but so is Intel. At CES this year, Intel announced that they were pledging $300 million to diversifying their workforce, both in terms of people of color and women, right? We can challenge this assertion that only white men go into technology. And we can do that by who we put in videos, who we put in our collateral, who we reach out to. So we can start showing some role models in technology that are not white men. We can celebrate the historical women and people of color that contributed to technology and make it so that it's not a story just about Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla and Steve Jobs. Like, it's about Rosalind Carter, and it's about Ada Lovelace, and it's about Grace Hopper, like all these women that we know exist, and start changing the view actively as companies of who we think belongs here. I think that is probably the most powerful thing that we can do, as well as getting girls involved in technology and science in a younger age through camps, through targeted messaging, through reaching out to them in spaces that they exist in, like fandoms and cosplay, which is what my talk was on. Go to those places and integrate technology to where they already are, and that will help.
Very good. That's something that's important on a community level, and that's what can I do here in Austin, Texas, but what collectively can we do as a country? And I think a big part of it is going to be STEM education initiatives. Yes. I could point to all sorts of research that would tell you that a female is statistically more likely to be a lot better at math and science than a man is. Yet they're not in the fields, which is, it's troubling. So if we could switch gears one more time, embedded electronics have been a really big deal at South by this year. To my wit, at least, a lot of the emphasis has been on wearables, but what are some of the larger trends that you've seen?
So we've seen with embedded, definitely smart home and connected devices, Internet of Things. That's a trend in electronics in general, but people now are wanting to hack and make their own, right? Like, they don't necessarily want to put a proprietary technology like Nest in their house. They want to build their own and customize it, and so it tells them exactly what they're doing. So connected devices, I think, are a huge emerging industry for hackers and makers. 3D printing isn't so much a embedded electronic, but it is something that's shaping what makers can do and how they can do it. So, and the cost of 3D printing is coming down. So I think soon we'll see people with 3D printers in their houses doing all sorts of cool stuff. And you can 3D print circuits. There is conductive filament, so you can make these custom designs. Wearables is a broad term. There's everything from the health and biometric kind of information all the way up through, there was a woman who used one of our products, one of our wearable line called LilyPad, to put it in her ballet shoes because she had never seen the way that she danced from a mechanical or data standpoint. And she wanted to know about these things. And so she did. And then that's becoming like a data visualization project for the ballet. So there's some cool overlap of art and technology that's starting to emerge as well.
Yeah, when I think about IoT in general, wearables particularly, I have to wonder, is the goal to make my life easier, to make me more comfortable? Is it just to find creative new ways to collect my data and then resell it somehow?
I think it's both. And I think it's not so much even about reselling your data as people, especially millennials, right? Millennials love to know how things work. So there's this fascination with, if you take a Misfit as an example, that will track all of your activity, but also your sleep. And I have a Misfit. I'm totally one of those people. But people are very involved with how many hours of sleep did I get last night, and how many steps did I take, and knowing more about yourself. And about the interaction that you have with your environment, I think is something that's really interesting to a lot of people. And we can now measure that in ways that we never could before, right? You can make a UV pen that tracks how much UV exposure you've had during the day, or anything basically you can dream of, you can make. And it's more control over our environment with things like smart home. I think that's what's driving it. So some of it is convenience, and some of it I think is just this fascination that we can now use electronics in ways that we never could before, and know more about even ourselves in ways that we couldn't know before, like the woman with the ballet shoes.
So Jessica, where can our viewers go to find out more about SparkFun and look at some of the products?
Totally. So our website, we are only an e-retailer, so if you would like to learn about SparkFun, you need to go to www.sparkfun.com. And from there are links to all of our products as well as our project tutorials. So if you don't know what you want to make, but you want to make something, start there. The information about our badger hack is there, so if you're looking how to hack your badge, that is there, as well as our upcoming events, and basically everything that we're involved in is off that site.
All right. Well, thank you so much for stopping by and filling us in on the good work SparkFun is doing. Excuse me.
Sure, no worries. Thank you so much. Thanks. I appreciate it.
And cut that last part out.
Okay.
So what else is on tap for today?
Well, I have actually a friend that lives in Austin, so I'm going to go meet her.